everyone. Welcome everyone. I'm Sonu Bhaskar, the chair of Youth Committee at the Rotary Club of Sydney, and I want to extend my special welcome to you all. At the outset, I want to acknowledge that I want to pay my respect to the traditional custodians of the land on which we are gathered here today, the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I also want to pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders here today. The Rotary Club of Sydney endorses and supports the Uluru Statement from the Heart. Welcome to our fourth Rotary Youth Talk. It's an exciting program, and our leading question is, how do we cultivate youth leadership for a kinder and a better world? Rotary Youth Talks is a program to attract youth, Rotary alumni and scholars, as well as guest speakers with relevant backgrounds to share their experiences and insights on youth participation, capacity building, and broader engagement. Today, we will reflect on this during the course of our meeting today. Before we move on, I have a special session for you all, and I've invited my good friend and past president, Ms. Kathy Tate, and a strong supporter of youth projects to share some thoughts on leadership. And Kathy is a Canadian, so it would be lovely to hear from a Canadian. Welcome, Kathy, over to you.
Hey, Sonu, thanks. And hello, everyone, and particularly to our guest speakers, Courtney and Lara. This is wonderful, and I can't say enough about how important these youth Rotary Talks are, and it's about time. Congratulations, Sonu, on establishing this and keeping it alive. So I'm going to be brief about leadership, and after many years of having to act in leadership roles, there is one strategy that I believe is being overlooked. And I don't want this to come across as being trite, but it's simply about being kind. I believe it's a pretty powerful and fundamental strategy. And in fact, it's innately human just to be kind. What's fascinating now is that there's lots of work and research going on about leaders and how leaders are encompassing kindness. Gallup surveys have been done as recent as 2020. And they're looking at what are the effects about employers and when they start to care about the well-being of others who work in their organizations. So we know that these have been challenging times, difficulty in adapting at times, and that there has been mental health challenges, and those are going to continue to grow. But practicing active habitual kindness, it really can transform a workplace, and it's something you can start today as a leader. And it doesn't cost anything. It's so critical to give reassurance to people, to provide compassionate listening, and really make a conscious effort, to validate people's fear and confusion during these times. Unfortunately, I think the notion of kindness in the form of simplest words and gestures often get lost with some of the big leaders and managers who are at times during these times in almost a perpetual crisis management mode. But while confronting these challenges, it actually requires time and unique skill sets. Kindness does not. So what I would urge you to do is to take a look at how you can be kind and what this means to the person that you are actually delivering that kindness to. So that's it on leadership. Thanks, Sonu.
Wow, beautiful words, Kathy, and for everyone, you know, Kathy has been part of several boards, international, locally, Canada and Australia, and internationally. So she, you know, brings a lot of insights into the leadership, and I hope that the word on compassion will also be a guide for you as you build, especially the youth leaders like Lara and Courtney, as you build your leadership journey. So compassion is critical, and many organizations now are building compassion into their KPI metrics as well to drive innovation and capacity building. So on that note, thank you, Kathy, for sharing those thoughts on leadership. I want to now reinforce that this is a safe space where all ideas from everywhere and anywhere are welcome. So please feel free to participate and share your views through the question and answer chat function on the Zoom. We'll also have an opportunity to have a panel discussion later this evening. So buckle up and hold your questions till then. Today we'll hear and get inspired from our guest speakers, Rotary International District 9675, Rotaract Representative Courtney Krahe and Lara Ruthstein. These two amazing women, young and emerging leaders, are going to speak to us and share their journey into youth leadership. We'll also have an opportunity later, as I've said, to have a panel discussion. And now I also want to extend a special welcome to our guests who are joining us here today. Dot Hennessy, the PCYC board member, a special friend to Rotary and to Rotary Club of Sydney. And our special welcome to the Ruthstein family and the Gerstel family, who happens to be the relatives of our speaker today, Lara Ruthstein. So welcome, Gerstel family, a special welcome to you all. And if you're listening, know that we acknowledge your presence here. On that note, I would like to invite our dear friend, Dr. Thelma Raman, a fellow Rotarian and chair of Rotary Foundation and Climate Action Group here today, to introduce our guest speakers. Following the talk, we'll have a discussion, so carry on. Welcome, Thelma.
Thanks, Sonu, and it is with pleasure that I introduce our two guest speakers today. So I'd like to start by introducing Courtney Krahe. Courtney is the Rotary International District 9675 Rotaract Representative for 2020-2022. Courtney joined her high school Interact Club over 10 years ago. And over the last 10 years, Courtney has participated in a variety of youth programs, including Interact, MUNA, RYE, RYLA, Rotaract Round Trips, and was also the Charter VP of UTS Rotaract. Courtney's aim for her term as the district representative is to rebuild and re-engage Rotarians and Rotaractors with each other across the district. I'm also equally excited to introduce Lara Ruthstein. Lara is pursuing a psychology honors degree at Macquarie University. In 2017, she was selected to represent Australia in soccer at the Maccabiah Games. And in 2019, she also received the Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award. In January of 2020, Lara went to Israel and was selected to intern at their national anti-doping organization. After returning from Israel, Lara is now a voluntary leader for Habonim Dror. So with that, I'm really looking forward to listening to our two guest speakers today. Thank you, Sonu.
Thank you, Thelma. On that note, can I invite formally Ms. Courtney Krahe. Courtney, over to you. Mic is yours.
I'm on mute. I was on mute. Awesome. All right. Hi, guys. Let's see how this goes. So my name is Courtney Krahe, and I am the District Rotaract Representative for 9675 from 2020 to 2022. So I get to do it for 2 years. Yay! Which I think is really great to be able to put in place a longer strategic vision and actually make some change. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. So as noted, I joined my high school Interact Club a very long time ago. It was probably 2008 at this stage. And I just wanted a weekend away on Muna to dress up and debate with some people. And here we are today. It's kind of been a whirlwind. So after Interact in high school, I went on Rotary Youth Exchange to France. And this is where I was. So I was in Montargis. It's a very small town in the Beetroot in France. And so I had 6 different host families, which was a lot. I don't recommend 6, but it was a really good opportunity for me to meet a lot of people from around the world. So these were the other people in our district, and you had, you know, Argentina, Brazil, Ecuador, Taiwan, Japan, there was just so many different people. And to have the opportunity to spend a year in France and, you know, understand the French culture, but also understand people from other different cultures. I come from Port Macquarie, so it's very white, not a lot of different culture there. So this was really eye-opening for me, and it was a really awesome experience to have. My last host family, I call him my French grandfather because they're in their 60s. He said to me, when you go back, you have to join Rotary. I don't care what you join, but you have to join Rotary. Rotary has given you so much in terms of opportunities so far, and I was only 19 at the time. So you have to give back. And so that's kind of, I had this like thing in my head, like I have to do this, like I can't let him down. So I came back and I went to uni at UTS, studying a Bachelor of Management in Events and Leisure. And I joined Sydney City Rotaract Club back in 2013. And so from there, I went into RYLA, as we touched on a little bit earlier. So that was an incredible week of my life. I learned a lot about myself and kind of how to interact with other people and yeah, just kind of what kind of a direction I wanted to go in. And so from there, out of RYLA, we made UTS Rotaract with the help of the Rotary Club of Sydney and the Rotary Club of Kogarah. And so that was really awesome. The Rotaract Club was from 2014 to 2019, 2020, it folded. But it was a really great opportunity, and I learned a lot in terms of leadership and working with different people and how to get the best out of people, which was really cool. And then this other thing that I really enjoy about Rotaract is all of the other stuff that you can do. So in 2015, I applied for the Serbia trip. I applied online and I didn't hear anything about it for a couple of weeks, maybe a month or 2. And then I got this email being like, you've been accepted to Serbia trip. And then I couldn't find any information about it again. I was like, oh my God, like, have I been catfished into going to Serbia? But it actually all worked out. So I went on a trip for a week. The Rotaractors put on a trip, and there was Rotaractors from around the world as well. And they showed us their culture and, you know, the projects that they were doing. So I went on a Rotaract Hungary trip as well a few years later, and Route Istanbul is their version of a Rotaract trip as well. So I really enjoy being able to go to other countries and meet other Rotaractors, because when you go on these trips, it's not just you and the people from the place, it's you and other Rotaractors from different countries. So when I was on Route Istanbul, there was a girl from an African country and they adopt elephants. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this is the most precious thing. So there's lots of opportunities. And the other favorite thing that I have is going to conferences. It sounds a little bit boring, but the European conferences are absolutely wild. And just, you know, there's such an impact that they have in Europe. You know, they have a lot of different issues that we have, refugees, a lot of homelessness, all that kind of stuff. So seeing how they really make an impact has been really awesome for me. So that's one of my favorite parts of Rotaract. So 2020, 2021, 2022. So far we have managed to charter the Illawarra Rotaract Club. And Strathfield Rotaract is coming back to life. We had the 100 Years of Rotary, which was fantastic. And these are just a little few snippets. Being able to talk at conference about my 100 Years, 100 Trees project was really cool. So far, we're over 1,000 trees, so goal achieved. I'm really excited about that. If you want to plant some trees, let me know. And basically, yeah, the whole point is to rebuild and re-engage. So we're rebuilding the district, we're getting more clubs. So we're now 4 clubs, whereas when I started, we were 2. So I count that as a win. And re-engaging with the Rotary clubs, with the other districts, so 9685, we're doing some collaborative stuff there as well. So really just building Rotaract back in Sydney is kind of the main thing. And yeah, we have a couple of plans and goals for the next 6 months. So really excited to see how that goes. And for those of you who don't know where some of these clubs are, that's little stars. And yeah, professional development as well. I have to reach out to you, Mark, and tell you about something that's happening next weekend. My bad. But we are doing our own version of Pets and Bets. And so professional development is something that a lot of the club members have really talked about in the last year and a half. You know, they're either just about to finish their degree or just going into the workplace for the first time. So it's something that's really a big focus for everyone. And yeah, they were the rest of my goals for these 2 years. So if you have any questions, please do let me know. I'm always here to take phone calls. I get them all the time from a lot of different people. So yeah, I hope that is a little bit of an insight into Rotaract and Rotaract in the district at the moment. I think anyone and everyone should join Rotaract or Rotary. I'm not particularly fussy which one you join, depending on what works for you, because I understand that, you know, not every club is for everyone. So as long as you just come into the fold, it's a little bit culty, but I swear it's not. So that's kind of what I had to say about that. Thank you, Sonu.
Thank you, Courtney, and come into fold. Those were the concluding thoughts that I would, for those who are not part of Rotary, please join us. It's a great organization, and Rotaract, of course, if you're youth and want to participate in programs, it's a great platform. On that note, and without further ado, I just want to invite Lara Ruthstein. Lara, over to you. Welcome, Lara.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lara, as you know, and I'm gonna say a little something and tell you what I'm about. So, small, a word I'm quite familiar with. I was always the smallest in my class, the smallest on my soccer field, the smallest in my friend group, and the smallest in my family. Even my chocolate Labrador is taller than me. I was always told throughout my adolescence, don't worry, you'll get a growth spurt soon. So I waited and waited and waited. To this very day, I am still waiting. Being the smallest in every facet of my life came with its challenges and insecurities. From the constant jokes such as, how's the weather down there? To my feet never touching the floor when I sat on a chair. The word small had negative connotations. It made me feel restricted, claustrophobic, and deflated. However, as I grew up, my perspective on height became something that I embraced, rather than something that I was embarrassed about. I always have legroom on a plane. I'm an absolute gun at hide and seek, and I'm always able to pass as a 15-year-old to get food from the kids' menu. As the saying goes, dynamite comes in small packages. And I now realize that even the smallest of things can make the biggest impact. Starting small provides one with foundational building blocks to achieve greatness. This outlook was inspired by my parents, who emphasized the importance of hard work and tenacity. My mother has always been heavily involved in community organizations, including more recently, Maccabiah Games. Her constant drive, dedication, and multitude of leadership roles that she has undertaken inspired me to seize every opportunity that was presented to me, big or small. Additionally, my father has always been devoted to his work as an IT technician. Whether his clients ask him to fix the biggest or smallest problem, he will spend hours with them until the job is finished to an optimal standard. I embodied such values and applied them to my childhood and early adolescent years. For example, a salient moment that resonates with me occurred in the early years of high school when I auditioned for a school musical called Back to the 80s. Unfortunately, I was only selected to be a part of the ensemble. However, each year I worked harder and harder. And ultimately, in the last few years of my schooling, I was selected to play a main role in each of these 2 musicals. Additionally, I was a member of the Student Representative Council from years 7 to 11. Then in my final year, I was elected as a school prefect. Being a part of the SRC acted as smaller building blocks to achieve the ultimate goal of being elected as a school prefect. Moreover, as part of my prefect role, I ran a film screening about youth homelessness to raise money for the Lighthouse Foundation. These smaller achievements provided me with a platform to give back to those less fortunate. I have also always had a love of sport. One of my greatest achievements was when I was selected to be team captain for my school soccer and futsal teams in 2019. Each year, I worked very, very hard to gain respect and trust from my teammates, and as a result, they elected me to be their leader. Further, in 2018, I received an award at the end of year awards night for all-round participation in the life of the school. These schooling achievements significantly impacted my school life and highlighted that those smaller moments were recognized and ultimately rewarded. I have also heavily been involved in many activities beyond the walls of my school. I have played soccer since I was 6 years old, for Maccabi at a club level at first. Eventually, after lots of hard work, in 2015, I was selected for UNSW to play in Division 2 of the National Premier League. However, my ultimate goal was to represent Australia at the Maccabiah Games in Israel. Each day, I worked on my soccer skills and fitness levels in order to be selected for the team, and 2 years later, this goal was fulfilled as I wore green and gold with pride. Finally, in 2019, I received my Gold Duke of Edinburgh award. This award required me to complete my bronze and silver awards beforehand. All 3 levels of achievement included completing hours of volunteering, physical activity, and improving my skills. It can be recognized that fulfilling goals is a process. It might be a scary process, but all you have to do is start somewhere. Start small. Straight after high school, I volunteered for Camp Sababa. This camp was for kids with disabilities, and it provided the families with respite. Whilst it was only a couple of days, this small amount of time helped families immensely, and whilst I was sleep deprived for a week after, this camp left kids beaming with happiness. A small effort that greatly impacted those around me. The following year, I embarked on a gap year program in Israel called Aardvark. This program's main objective was either to volunteer or undertake an internship. Consequently, I was selected to intern at Israel's National Anti-Doping Organization. This internship emphasized the importance of establishing trust and hard work, and it exposed me to the behind-the-scenes logistics of sport. My job as a native English speaker was to summarize their legal documents in order for non-fluent speakers to be able to understand the legalities regarding anti-doping in Israeli sport. Additionally, I also drug tested athletes at live games and was shown how to act according to protocols when dealing with professional athletes. One moment from my time as an intern that was quite memorable was when I was invited to a nighttime basketball game. On my program, it was quite unusual to intern at night. However, I knew my work needed me, and I ended up staying there till the early hours of the morning due to drug testing complications. My time as an intern at this organization made me realize that it's often the smaller people behind the scenes who ensure that professional environments run smoothly and ethically. After returning from Israel, I still wanted to remain connected to my Jewish community, and thus I am now a volunteer leader for Habonim Dror, a youth movement that operates throughout Australia as well as around the world. Our aim is to enrich Jewish identities and create an engagement with Israel for the youth in our community. Through critically analyzing the world around us, we strive to empower the youth, providing them with the ability to develop meaningful Jewish identity that exists in all spheres of life, which is to be used to improve oneself, the Jewish people, and the wider world. We, Habonim Dror, run weekly educational programs, have biannual camps and seminars. We start small. It is our hope that the education we provide to the youth of Sydney will transform into something greater. We don't expect a 10-year-old to be able to change the world. However, we aim to instill humanistic values such as kindness, tolerance, and critical thought. It is our hope that in 10 years, that 10-year-old will not only be a good person, but will become a leader at Habonim Dror and teach such valuable lessons to the next generation. Right now, I am a student at Macquarie University studying psychology honours, and I work a couple of jobs. Yet, it's the moments not driven by career or academics that really have made me the person I am today. Reflecting on my contributions to my international community and local community, I've come to realise that we have made leadership into something bigger than us, something beyond us. We've made it about changing the world. We've taken this title of leader and treated it as something that one day we're going to deserve. But to give it to ourselves right now means a level of arrogance or cockiness that we're not comfortable with. And I worry sometimes that we spend so much time celebrating amazing things that hardly anybody can do, that we've convinced ourselves that those are the only things worth celebrating. We start to devalue the things that we can do every day. We take moments where we are truly a leader and we don't let ourselves take credit for it or feel good about it. Whether it's as small as smiling at a passing stranger or donating $1 a month to your chosen charity. No matter how large or small your goals are, a small contribution goes a long way. So my suggestions to all of you is to start small and spread kindness to all. As Paul Kelly and Kevin Carmody put it, from little things, big things grow. Thanks, everyone.
Beautiful, beautiful thoughts, those, Lara. And it really comes to a full circle, isn't it? It started small, and that small circle became a big concentric circle. And it started with Kathy's words about leadership and compassion. And it really expanded with Courtney's foray into the world of Rotaract and then to the real world impact of it. And Lara, you have really captured beautiful thoughts and action in your community, and you have led the soccer in Israel, and we really want to congratulate you for your tenacity and perseverance. On that note, now is the time for a panel discussion. I would like to invite Courtney and Lara, both of you, and we'll start the discussion with a few questions at the outset. Courtney, you touched base upon your experiences in France and other countries. What is one thing that you think that it's important for youth to have those lived experiences overseas? Do you think that, you know, immersing yourself in a culture different from yours brings a perspective which helps build leadership skills?
Yeah, for sure. And I was actually having this conversation with my boss the other day. You know, going and living in another country for however long and having that immersive experience, it actually helps you understand the different culture, and it gives you empathy, and it gives you a better cultural understanding, and it removes the other, if you will. So you understand people better. And I think it's really important, especially you know, for young people, teenagers, and this is why I'm such a big advocate for Rotary Youth Exchange, to have that, because I think you grow up quite a lot, and I think it, you know, really opens and widens your horizons and the whole empathy and understanding other people. And I think that goes a long way to removing, you know, things like racism and hate and all of that kind of stuff. So I do think it's really important, and everyone should do it.
No, thank you, Courtney. And at the beginning, I gathered that you actually grew up in Port Macquarie, and then you came to Sydney and then to these beautiful countries. Can you share one particular experience which you thought was, you know, changed as you built up your career and your experience, which was different from the opinion you held when you were in Port Macquarie, and then, you know, your experiences or a particular part of your thought that changed over time?
Yeah. Port Macquarie is a very white old people, you know, they call it God's waiting room, because it's just where all the retirees go before they die. So, you know, kind of going from that to the middle of France somewhere, that was a big shock. And then coming back to Sydney to start uni, and UTS is in the middle of Chinatown. So there was just a lot of change, and you know, on college there was people from all different cultures as well. So I think it took a little while, but I definitely think that I'm more culturally sensitive or understanding all of that kind of thing. So I think that's something that I've definitely noticed, you know, from someone who had no other people in my school other than just white kids, to what it is now, I guess.
Fantastic, Courtney. I'm just mindful that Thelma wants to chip. Thelma, welcome to the, please ask the question.
Thanks, Sonu, and thank you, Courtney and Lara. How enlightening to hear both your stories and your journeys. My question is for Lara, and yes, Lara, you know, you talked about the dynamite being in a small box. When I was growing up, my sister who's younger than me shot up before I did, and my nana would always say, don't worry, good things come in small parcels. That diamond doesn't come in a big box. So yeah, similar story. So Lara, you used, you know, you talked about being small, you talked about your physical sort of size, so to speak, as a potential barrier, but you reframed it and you see how that was now a positive. Youth of your generation are possibly also facing other barriers, based on their gender, based on their ethnicity, their cultural groups, their ability to speak English or not speak English clearly, whatever it is. What advice would you give to youth of your generation for the kind of barriers that they are experiencing now?
I also think that as a Jewish person, there's a lot of barriers you face in that respect. And when I've ever faced, for example, anti-Semitism or oppression as a woman or anything like that, in my opinion, education is always the main thing, and you should always try educate yourself. So if you're ever caught in a situation where someone says something that's very uncalled for or very targeting and not very nice, if you have the facts and you have the evidence and you can engage in a proper conversation with someone and dissect their argument, for example, as to why they have these views on the matter, it can definitely set you up and be able to tackle those conversations and all of that. So I just think that education is, and equipping yourself with the right knowledge is how to tackle those issues.
Education is the antidote to discrimination. Great words from you, Lara. And on that note, can I ask you further, as you know, the world is becoming more complex, and we see a growing incidence of divide based on discrimination against culturally ethical, culturally linguistically diverse background and women and so on and so forth. And as you rightly said, the anti-Semitism or Islamic sentiments on rise. How do we sustain and build a narrative among youth like you, where we can use evidence-based methods and engagement and mindfulness to empower the so-called adults to think about that the discrimination is not the way to go, and probably a more compassionate world, which is inclusive of one and all, can help heal relations? Lara, over to you.
Yeah, so I find it very interesting. I don't know if everyone knows what this is, but it's called confirmation bias. And I think that when people want to surround themselves, whether it's with information or whether it's with like-minded people, those things can drive your attitudes. So if you have a group of friends, for example, that all think a certain way, and maybe in my generation, there's certain trends that go on and everyone becomes fixated on these trends because they're the cool thing to do. So I just think also critical thought is very, very important to tackle these issues, and not giving into confirmation bias. And I don't know if everyone knows what that is, but it's like when you seek information that is in line with your pre-existing views and confirming that. And so you just end up being in this tumbling ice snowball. And yeah, I just think that whilst it is really important to surround yourself with educated, like-minded people, it's also important to be surrounded by a vast range of different diverse people from different backgrounds, because there's always so much more to learn. Education is like limitless. So yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, Lara. And I must compliment that the education with experience, there not many people are formally educated, but they will bring the wealth of experience, and that is as valuable as education itself. Courtney, just to compliment Lara's, and I'll go to Mark after this. You shared something really exciting, which was that immersion in different cultures brings that experience, and that changed your opinion about people and thought of people and so on and so forth. Now you're coming back to Australia. You've started a degree or program at UTS. How important do you think is education in building a narrative which is important for youth to engage and talk about those disadvantaged kids who don't have the access to education and probably some of them who are unable to get educated? How important is education in empowerment of youth? Courtney, over to you.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely what Lara was saying, that confirmation bias and the echo chamber of just going around and around in circles, I think that's really important to kind of break out of. Education for sure is one of the most important things. And I've seen it with some people that haven't been able to get out of Port Macquarie and are just kind of stuck in some of those lower end jobs because of the inability to be able to move to Newcastle and Sydney and support themselves and also have an education. So, I think that is a massive thing. But also just understanding other people, I think, is really important. And that is an education piece, having those difficult conversations and finding someone that you are comfortable with asking some of these questions. One of my previous bosses, he's a Muslim, and that was the first kind of interaction that I've ever had with someone of a Muslim faith. And we have the relationship that I can sit down and I can ask him all of these questions that I wouldn't otherwise know the answers to. And that has definitely changed or helped my perspective and understanding of Islam for sure, and kind of change some of those ideas. So education is really important, just being able to have those open conversations. And it doesn't, ignorance breeds hate. But also understanding how to have those conversations and finding people that you are comfortable to talk to, and that they understand that it isn't, it's just, you just don't know and you want to understand and you want to educate yourself. So.
Absolutely. Sure. And there's a beautiful book and very scholarly work by, which really talks about from prejudice to hate. And it talks about Holocaust in Europe, as you know, that and it really documents all the different events that led up to the Holocaust. And it started with that ignorance and those, the prejudice that leads to it. And slowly and gradually that, it kind of becomes a tumor, and that tumor becomes metastatic and becomes much more violent in its ramifications. So it's so important that we fight ignorance with more education and awareness. So thank you, Courtney, for reminding us, and it's really amazing to hear that. Now, can I invite President Mark Dyer? Mark, you have a question, please.
I do. Thank you, Sonu. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, there is an echo, but we can hear you.
I'm operating on two devices. Sorry about that. This point you raised, Lara, about confirmation bias is really quite interesting, I think, leading on from last week's youth talk, which, Professor Gabrielle Phillips was talking about how diversity of interaction has an impact on the brain itself from a physical sense. But you're studying psychology, and I reckon that's potentially the hardest subject of all, working out what goes on this 6 inches here. What is it that interests you in psychology?
Honestly, it's not the science of it. And I think that whilst I am studying, and that's the main part of it, And I do find it very, very fascinating, and it does give my degree substance. But the reason I chose to do psychology in the first place was because I just loved helping people. There's lots of different paths in psychology, such as organizational psychology, or you can go into the scientific research side of it, or you can go into clinical. But for me, it was about helping people, and I want to go into the clinical path. So I just think that if I can do my part by talking to people and hoping that their mental state becomes better, and if I can do my little part of being a good person and helping others, then yeah, I can just make this world, I guess, as cringy as it is, a better place.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just
much.
ask what area of
Yep.
psychology you're specializing in or focusing?
Well, at the moment, I'm just doing a normal psych honors degree. So that means just everything. It gives you a taste of everything. But I want to do clinical, and eventually, I don't know which part of clinical I want to do. At first, when I started the degree, I said, oh, I want to be with adolescents, but now I'm potentially leaning, because I always find myself drawn to young children in terms of I nanny, I soccer coach, and I just find it fascinating in terms of what mechanisms in their behavior, like what mechanisms in their brain is driving their behavior. And the parents, for example, that I nanny for, they lack resources in terms of why their kids are acting up. They've got disabilities, and they're always like, I don't understand what's going on. And I just think that area is developing, and there's a high demand for psychologists. So I think at the moment I'm heading towards, but it could change. I've still got.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lara. It looks like you're getting more interested in developmental neuroscience. It's an evolutionary, it's a very exciting field of psychology, and I'm very happy to talk to you about it at one point of time. But on that note, can I invite Kathy Tate? Kathy, over to you.
Hey, thank you again, Sonu, and thank you, Courtney and Lara. I have a question for both of you, so whoever wants to go first. I'm really curious. Failure can sometimes unlock breakthroughs, and I'm just curious how each of you see this as a concept or an opportunity to learn.
You can go first.
Failure. I fail at things all the time. My biggest failure that probably really did it for me was in my first year of uni. I nearly failed accounting, and I know that sounds really silly, but my mum is one that is so into education, and there was no possibility that I wasn't ever going to uni. And you know, the expectations of, you know, parents and high achievers that she is, nearly failing a subject was like the worst thing in the world for me. And that kind of shaped or reframed how I kind of looked at things and my perspective and what I actually wanted, as opposed to what was achievable, like what was achievable for me and what was the expectation on me. So yeah, that was really important, I think. And something that, yeah, I did find from RYLA, as I was saying before, you know, I'm a bit of a control freak. So I do try to control everything and have all of the scenarios played out, but that doesn't really give you opportunities to fail or to learn and grow. So I've kind of tried to pull that back a little bit and have that opportunity to fail and to learn and all of that kind of thing. So I think that's a little bit of a self-awareness piece, if nothing else. So yeah, I think that is really important. And just to let yourself fail. Like, you're not always going to win everything. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? I'm not going to die, theoretically.
Lara, over to you. Thank you, Courtney.
In my opinion, I just think failing, which is quite a harsh word, is honestly just a part of life. It's a part of your life course. And I would count myself, and I think my family probably thinks the same thing, and my friends, that I'm quite a spiritual person in terms of I really am strong. I strongly believe that everything happens for a reason. And my aunt said this quote to me maybe a year ago, where obstacles are just a blessing in disguise. And if something doesn't work out and it's not planned, and sometimes I think quite early on throughout my high school experience, I always was very much like Courtney, who was, if I have a plan, I'm sticking to this plan. And if it doesn't work out, then there's no option. Like I'm making this happen. Otherwise there's no what if. But now I think I've just gained a lot of perspective. I think also just living in Israel, I know I'm going a bit off topic right now from failure, but just the living in Israel and the go with the flow lifestyle has really reframed my outlook on failure. And I just think that, yeah, everything happens for a reason. And if it doesn't work out one way, there's always another way. For example, with uni, if I didn't get into my course that I dreamed of, there was another course, or there's a bridging course, or there's another university. Choices are endless. And just because you might fail at one thing, there's a reason for that, and your path will take you another way.
Fantastic, Lara. And you know, you're speaking the language of Harvard Business Review. So Harvard Business Review recently released a wonderful article on servant leadership. And servant leadership is about the leaders sit behind and let the team drive, and you know, they reflect on the shortcomings and the failures, and they become a better team and a better individual in that process. And it's so important that leaders take more responsibility on behalf of the team for the failures, and that's where the accountability comes. But that doesn't also take away the responsibility of leaders to ask hard and difficult questions at times for their team and for their people. And it's important that you two have reflected and taught us so much about those leadership skills. And I'm fascinated by this conversation. I think many of the people in the audience have. So really great a meeting and a message from both. Before we end, I just have one last question to both of you. Now, you both are leaders, as you have described and demonstrated today. Now, in next 5 years, as you go on in your leadership journey, you have a responsibility, Courtney and Lara, to empower more women like you to come up and be the leaders and come and speak at Rotary Youth Talks in future. What are you gonna do in next few years to empower more women and leaders through your mentorship? Courtney, over to you.
Boy, what a loaded question. Well, the person that is hopefully, fingers crossed, going to be DRR after me is a woman as well, so that's exciting. I don't know, I think just encouragement. I think we are our biggest, worst enemy, and you know, this whole thing of like tearing each other down and nitpicking at everyone's faults, I think that's just so annoying. So, you know, trying to reframe that and just be really encouraging and helpful to people, I think that's a really good first step, if nothing else, to support people in whatever they want to do next. I guess you've made me think now. That's where I'm going to start.
No, thank you, Courtney. And in that journey, now, Lara, over to you, but how would you empower people from diverse communities? As you become leader, you understand the nuances of it, and what's your recipe for your leadership journey?
Well, in terms of empowering women, I think that surrounding yourself with very powerful women, I think my mother, for example, is probably the most powerful woman I've ever met in my life. And that probably came from her mother and father, who are my grandparents on this Zoom, sitting right there. But also my friends. I think I've had a very, very strong group of friends coming out of school, and they're all very much into women empowerment, and we're always there for each other and always there to, I guess, be proud of each other in each other's achievements and just, I guess, hype them up to be a good person and inspire other women as well. And I hope that in 10 years' time, when I have my children potentially, and if one's a girl, I hope that I can teach her to do the same thing. And surround yourself with very strong, passionate women in your life is just one step towards empowering all women around the world, in the country, everywhere. And yeah, that's my kind of answer to.
Thank you, Lara. And you know, you reflected on your grandmother and your mother, and I must say that, you know, one of the great leadership quality is about building a tribe, and that tribe starts home. It starts from home, and you're very fortunate to have amazing mentors in your mother and grandmother, and hopefully you will carry on that thing and pass on to the next generation. Thank you, both of you, for joining us today. I'm going to do a surprise and invite our PCYC board member, Dot Hennessy, to just give some thoughts of her observation of this meeting. And Dot, over to you.
Thank you, Sonu, and good afternoon, everybody. It's lovely to see you again, Courtney. You're always so passionate and so vibrant, and it's a joy to be part of your journey. And to both of you, congratulations. You're achieving so much, and you've shared so much with us today. And I reflect on the 2014 RYLA, Courtney. It was a very special year. How many RYLArians did we have?
70, 75?
We did. And was that the year we had the SES bus there with all the guys?
Oh, I think that was 2016.
Was it? Okay. So anyway, it was a wonderful, RYLA's life-changing for everybody that ever goes to RYLA, comes away just different person. And it's wonderful to see how it shaped your life. So to each of you, continue your leadership journey. Always be yourself and be honest to yourself, and respect the others that are working with you. Remember, team means together each achieves more. And it's about working together, respecting each other and challenging each other to do our very best and our service above self. And if you live by the four-way test, our Rotary four-ways test, you'll always be successful. So congratulations, and looking forward to sharing many more Rotary moments with each of you. Thank you so much, Sonu, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dot. Very kind words, and I hope that is a great words of wisdom for all of us. And you bring a lot of experience from your involvement with Rotary and PCYC. So thank you, Dot Hennessy, for joining us today. On that note, I want to thank you again, our guest speakers, Lara Ruthstein and Courtney Krahe, for sharing their passion and journey with us. A big thanks to all the guests and Rotarians who joined us at this event, and for your support to Rotary Youth Talks. Before we close, I have some concluding thoughts for all of you to reflect and think about. Eccles and Goodman, one of a great thought leader in the space I follow, in their landmark work in 2002, proposed a framework of working with, on, and behalf of youth, in which they underscored the importance of engagement of youth in collective decision-making and action. And they said that a unique partnership between adults and young people have the opportunity to make suggestions and decisions in which the contribution of each is recognized and valued. And it's a great partnership between youth and our experienced torchbearers, the elderly and the wise. The question is, how does this benefit youth? We have sufficient evidence now to support that these partnerships, which is the theme of this discussion today, build young people's capabilities, as you have seen two outstanding women who are very capable. It fills and inspires their feeling of self-worth, assisting them in cultivating talents and assisting their transition into adulthood to take an increasingly complex world, a world that is riddled with growing challenges of social disparities, income divide, and worsening climate indicators. We need an engaged, aware, and motivated youth base, and you have witnessed two amazing youth champions today. I leave you with these words of Nobel laureate and one of the greatest thinkers of our times, Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein said, and I quote, "Logic will get you from A to B, imagination will take you everywhere." On that note, I declare the meeting adjourned, and the floor will be open for fellowship, and you're welcome for a few minutes to just add on to this discussion. Thank you, everyone.